Have you ever wanted to try your hand at making your own gummy bears? This video is going to walk you through that process. You can make them in just about any flavor that you want to, and this is going to be your really easy, basic way to do it. There are tons of recipes out there to make them from scratch, but we're going to be using a couple of processed foods to make them just to make this as easy as possible. If you're trying to go dye-free, you can use the dye-free gelatin mix for this, but we're going to be using the Jello brand just because it's a little bit more well-known. But they do make dye-free gelatin dessert packets if you're trying to go with the dye-free version. Then you're also going to use a 0.25 ounce envelope of gelatin, or 14 grams if you're using the bulk gelatin, a third cup of water, and then you want some gummy molds and a large syringe for each flavor of gelatin that you are using. You're going to put your gelatin into a microwavable bowl and then put your bowl onto a scale to weigh it if you're using your bulk gelatin for this. And then if you need to weigh your stuff, just put your bowl on the scale and hit the tare weight and then add your gelatin until it reaches that weight. Your gelatin is much cheaper to buy in the bulk, so if this is something you're going to be doing on a regular basis, then this is an easy way to do that. If you are trying to go with a more natural route in this might be a better way to do it. So you can also use agar-agar for this process. So if you are trying to go vegan with this, that is a way to make this without the gelatin. Or if you do not want to use gelatin because you either have alpha-gal or something. So then you're going to add your desired gelatin to the bowl and add your water to the Jello and gelatin mixture. You can use fruit juice for this process as well if you are not using the flavored Jello packets, or you can use flavoring or extract as well. You're going to whisk this to combine and let it sit for 5 minutes. This is going to let the gelatin soak up or hydrate and soak up the water a little bit. And then you're just going to repeat this process with whatever flavors that you have. And this just lets that 5 minutes pass without wasting any time. We are making 5 colors because we are being overachievers today. So you're going to lay 2 of your molds onto a sheet pan. We are using half sheet pans, and this size works perfectly for stacking up. We're going to show you a method for stacking them up in a little bit so that you can put all of them in one big stack. And then microwave your bowl for 30 seconds, whisk that up, and then 15 seconds and whisk it again. This is going to hydrate your gelatin and get it dissolved really well, and also melt your sugar that's in the mixture. And then you're going to use a syringe and fill each of your gummies. These are large syringes that you can get online. And this is a lot easier for filling up these molds. All of your gummy molds are going to come with these little tiny eyedroppers that you can use to fill them. Using the eyedroppers takes forever, but the syringe fills these up super fast and works really, really well for this process. And you may be thinking that the syringes are disposable and so they might not be the best option, but I have found that they clean up really, really well. You just have to use some water and fill them up and pump them out, and they clean up really, really well. Obviously, you would never reuse a syringe for medical reasons, but these work very, very well for reusing for food reasons, and you just want to make sure they dry completely before you put them away. You do want to work with this very, very quickly because the concentration of the gelatin, this is going to solidify very, very fast. So make sure that you are getting it into these molds as quickly as you possibly can, which is another reason why you don't want to use the eyedropper, that the syringe works a lot better. And tilt your bowl to get the last bits of it out, because it does get bubbles in it very easily, and those bubbles are going to stay in the gelatin because of how thick it is. So then we are going to take some little sauce cups and place those upside down around the edges of the sheet pan, and this is going to allow us to stack all of your different flavors on top of each other. So another pan will just set right on top very easily. So the reason that this process works is that gelatin actually is protein. It's made out of, this is a little gross, but it's made out of the bones of pork and beef, which is part of the reason why it is not halal and it is not kosher. And so in those cases, the protein is going to be all tangled up in its powdered form, And so it's going to soak up the water, but then when we melt it, all those protein tangles untangle, and then as it solidifies, it entraps the water in between those tangles as it cools and forms a gel. And that's the reason that the gelatin works. So that's the science behind why the Jell-O works and why the gummies work in the process. And the reason why the gummies are a little bit thicker than the gelatin is we're using a lot less water for the gummies than we do for a Jell-O. Things like sugar or acid are going to keep the gel from being as strong as it naturally would be. And if you were to put citric acid on the outside of these gummies, it actually pulls water out of them. So for a while we did these in food science class, we were using citric acid on the outside, and these turned into a gloppy mess. The acid and the sugar can also denature the proteins, meaning that it breaks them up, and that keeps the gel from happening completely. And so having the acid in there can just kind of break them up. So you need to refrigerate these for at least 20 minutes, and that is going to solidify them. It doesn't take very long just because the concentration of that gelatin is super strong. But you can keep them in there for an hour or more. Honestly, it doesn't really matter too much how long you keep them in there. You need to walk away for a little while, but if you have kids that are waiting to do this is a great activity to do with kids, then 20 minutes is plenty of time. But then you are going to pop them out of the molds. A lot of the recipes that I see say to spray the molds, but I have found that makes them kind of gooey on the outside, so you can actually, because they're silicone, you don't really need to spray the molds, but use your finger to just kind of press against the back of them and they pop right out, and you can turn the mold inside out with your finger. So the first set that I did not spray, and the rest of them I did, but honestly it's a little bit harder to press them out if you don't spray it, but it works just fine either way. So if you want it to be a little bit easier, you can spray it, but it's not really needed. If you do want to make these sour, use malic acid for this process, but do not use citric acid because that will make them a really, really gooey mess on the outside. But you do want to mix that malic acid with sugar. And what I normally do is I will start out with about a half a cup of sugar and then add in maybe a half a teaspoon of acid at a time, just to see what the balance is, to see exactly how sour that you want to make it. Once you've unmolded all of your colors, you want to toss those together so that you get all your mix of colors, and then you are all finished with making your gummies. This is a super fun process to do with kids, and it kind of makes them feel like it's something magical. You can get gummy bear molds on the little gummy worm molds and stuff on Amazon or online as a whole, and this is a fun little activity to do with any age. So let us know in the comments if you decide to try this out, and we will see you guys next week. Please hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. We are trying to reach 1,000 subscriber mark, and we will see you guys later.